Hey Groove Seekers, it's Rebecca Undum, author of How Mommy Got Her Groove Back and founder of RebeccaUndum.com. Today, I want to come to you with something that was on my mind. It's a friend of mine that's going through this, and yet I myself have gone through this. I go through it all the time. I actually chronicled an experience of this specifically with a good friend of mine in my book, but I just thought it would make sense to have a little dialogue about the idea of being clear with people when we have expectations of them. And so, so the example, and I'm not going to go into, it's her story, so I'm not going to share it, but it's this idea that we walk around with an innate set of values, expectations of what we think is right and wrong. It's our moral code, it's our value set. And we all do this. What we tend to do is we assume everybody else kind of gets it, right? And potentially even holds the same values. Deep down, we know that's not true. But where it comes to be a problem is when somebody acts, outside of that, or they do something that we look at it and we say, gosh, that's just wrong, and they shouldn't be doing that. And then we start to attribute and give, we attach meaning to that, and we start to judge the person for it. And what I really want to talk about today is when we do that, it's one thing if the expectation was clearly laid out. But oftentimes, we're asking people to meet an expectation that we've never uttered aloud. We just walk around assuming that everybody else gets it when they don't. It's actually crazy. Anytime this happens, that we aren't quicker to have the conversation, because this is where the courage has to come from. When that happens, when somebody does something to you or acts in a way that you think is so clear and so obvious. Like one of the questions you may ask yourself is, who would do that? Right? Whenever we ask ourselves that question, we're basically saying, clearly, everybody knows that this isn't the way to behave. Anytime that happens, we have got to find the courage to go to the person and clearly define the line that we perceive them to have crossed. Because the truth is, they didn't do anything wrong per se. They don't know the line exists. And so today, I want to talk just for a minute too, thinking about where all the different places this applies. So I'm going to recap this incident in my book to give a little bit of context to this, because I'm not going to share my friend's story because it's hers and it's personal. But she's going through this right now, and I know there's probably someone out there going through the same thing. So in my book, I tell the story of my girlfriend. She showed up to an event just for adults with her baby. And it was my event. And I had to talk to her, but I had to find a way to talk to her about that. It's a really difficult thing, because in my mind, I'm like, obviously you don't bring babies to an event like this. Anybody else have a baby in the room? Why would you think that's okay? And all of those things. But really, my friend isn't a mind reader. Why on earth would I expect that she would know? And here's the thing, what drives our behavior and our choices is that we have different innate values. And my friend and I actually have a lot of things in common as far as what we value, but it didn't occur to her at all that that was something she shouldn't do. And nobody had ever told her that it wasn't okay. I had to do that, really, really difficult. But the truth is, it's saying you didn't do anything wrong. This is a boundary, this is a line for me, and here's the reason. And maybe it's, I would ask that you not do that again. Then the problem comes is if you have that conversation and they cross the line again, it's a whole different conversation. It's like me telling my husband, it really drives me crazy when you leave your pajamas on the floor of our bedroom, right? Like we've had this conversation oodles of times. He still puts them there. I don't know what to do. Maybe someone out there can help me. But the truth is, I had the conversation. It's not like he has no idea why I'm frustrated when I'm picking his clothes up again. We've talked about it. So what happens, I think, is that we tend to make assumptions. We tend to assume that people have worse motivations than they really do. And the truth is, it's not fair. It's not fair when we're in relationship with other people to not to clearly tell them how we perceive something to be, especially if we're hurt by it. And that's what really is the trigger, friends. If you're hurt by something, we've got to take a step back, look at it and say, Have I told this person that I would have a problem with X, Y? Have I told them what the line is? Have I defined the line that we perceive they've stepped over? And if not, it has to be said. It has to be said, because then they're going to continue to step over that line because they don't know the line exists. And then it just further reinforces that you think they're a jerk, or that they're inconsiderate, or that they're not, whatever. So today, friends, I encourage you to think about the times that you've been hurt and it's been hurt by another person, and ask yourself, was I clear about why I was upset about that? Was I clear about what why this is a line for me and why it matters? Because if you haven't had that conversation, it's never, ever, ever too late. You can go back to them and say, I should have said this 6 months ago. I should have said this a year ago. But it has changed how I feel about you, and I've got to clear this up. This is the reason I have a problem with this. Let's talk about it. Because again, we can't hold people to expectations that we've never spoken out loud. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is really kind of at the core of conflict. It's not making assumptions. It's questioning if you've communicated the line clearly, and then it's finding the courage to initiate that conversation and fill the other person in. Because if there's somebody close to you, they want to know the line. They want to know where the line is. They want to know that they've crossed the line. They want to know that they've upset you. Honestly, they do. And you can have that conversation in a loving, caring way that doesn't have to become this big conflict where you clash and butt heads. But it still needs to be said. It needs to be clear, and it needs to be defined. So that's my subject for the day. Would love to hear from you. And if you haven't picked up the book yet, I'll throw the link in at the end of the video. It's going like gangbusters. It's pretty awesome. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that too. Have a great day, everybody. Groove on.